So we begin this lecture number 11. This will be on Navier-Stokes equations, as I mentioned towards the end of my last lecture, that the stage is set now to talk about these rather celebrated equations in fluid mechanics. So our learning objective is obtaining these Navier-Stokes equations in primitive variables. So what is the meaning of primitive variables? Primitive variables are velocity and pressure. These are variables which are directly, you can say, physically realizable and measurable and ready to visualize and conceptualize. So these are directly measurable basic variables of fluid motion. So primitive variables. For what kind of flow? For the simplest model that I had talked about in my last lecture, viscous, incompressible, homogeneous, constant property flow of a Newtonian fluid. So this can be the most simple viscous flow model that can be applied to a large variety of flow problems that an engineer encounters in various technological applications, and this is the type of flow that we encounter in our laboratory experiments and all. So incompressible, homogeneous, constant property, I've already talked about it, the meaning of these keywords in my last lecture. Right. So now what's the process? Let us take a quick review of what we have learned so far. We have learned some basic physical principles, how they were applied to a fluid particle, and we derived certain equations which are nothing but mathematical forms of these physical laws applied to a fluid particle. So the first is the continuity equation, G.1 or G.1 dash. Then we had the linear momentum, which is the Cauchy's equation, G.2, and the constitutive relations, which are intrinsic relations of fluid between the viscous stress tensor and the strain rate tensor. So they are sort of inherent behavior of a fluid. So in that we had specifically focused on Newtonian fluids, and the relations were discussed in the last lecture as G.3 or G.3 dash. Okay, so this is our starting point for the Navier-Stokes equations. So we are going to consider the simplest model, the viscous flow model, that is most widely utilized. So incompressible, homogeneous, constant property flow. So what are the equations? That means if you were to simplify the continuity, linear momentum and constitutive relation using these three key ideas in the model. So G.1 is simplified to del dot V 0, or volumetric strain rate in each particle is 0. So this is the meaning of incompressibility. And what do you mean by homogeneity? The homogeneity can be seen in this equation G.2, which is Cauchy's equation. The homogeneity aspect can be readily seen in terms of constant density rho naught. Okay, it's no longer a flow variable, but it's just a constant or some kind of a number, okay, in this equation. Likewise, the constant property aspect is readily visible in the G.3 constitutive relation for Newtonian fluids in the form of mu naught, which is the first coefficient of viscosity, treated as a constant or just a number, so to speak, for a particular fluid. Okay, so once these general relations are simplified, G1, G2 and G3, using the ideas of incompressible, homogeneous and constant property flow, we can obtain the Navier-Stokes equations by substituting the the stress tensor, the total stress tensor from G.3 into G.2. So it means that the divergence of the stress tensor can be expressed as divergence of the isotropic part, which is minus P identity tensor, I tensor, which is written as I double bars, and plus 2 mu naught divergence of the strain rate tensor. Okay, 2 mu naught is just a constant, so it is taken outside the del operator. So it means that I have to simplify these two terms to the extent where they are no longer further simplifiable, you can say. So I take both the terms sort of one by one. So let us examine the two terms further on the right. So divergence of the isotropic tensor minus Pi, this can be simply written using the basic notations that we have been following from calculus of vector and tensor functions. I have already discussed these things in detail in my lectures number 6, part 1 and part 2. So by now I assume some kind of a familiarity with these operations. So the del operator is written and the dot product in between, and the identity tensor is simply written as delta jk ej ek cap. So ej cap ek cap diodes. So delta jk is the Kronecker delta, and notice that there are some repeating indices here, j and k and I. So all these are repeating indices, so summation is implied. Just to remind you, though I don't need to do it again and again, I have been stressing upon this for some lectures now. So you can move forwards now, and since delta jk is only going to contribute whenever k is equal to j, so the term can be simplified in the manner shown below, and then finally you get by operating this 1 over hi del over del xi on the three quantities minus p and ej cap and ej cap. So I get three distinct sort of terms, you can say, which are involved in the dot product with ei cap, and finally the ei cap is taken inside for the dot product. So I have these three terms. So you can say that this form that I have written above the orthogonal system statement, this can be the most general expansion that you can get for the divergence of the isotropic part of the stress tensor minus Pi identity tensor. Now we can continue simplifying this further for orthogonal systems. Ei cap dot ej cap will be again Kronecker delta ij. So I accordingly substitute this, and then using the fact that you have to sum over the repeating indices, and Kronecker delta doesn't contribute whenever I is different from j, so the terms are simplified, and eventually I have look at the bottom on the right side, three terms. So for orthogonal systems, this is the most general expression for pressure force per unit volume on a fluid particle. Okay, so this can be taken to be the most general expression for any kind of an orthogonal system. Of what? Of pressure force per unit volume acting on a fluid particle. Now notice the first term which has been circled in red. You will recognize this as gradient of the pressure, okay, because that's how we define the gradient. Okay, gradient is simply del operator operating on a scalar like quantity like pressure. Okay, so the first term is del P, so to say. Now the other two terms of course depend on what type of orthogonal system we are going to consider. So we will see both the coordinate systems that we have been talking about, the Cartesian as well as cylindrical. Right. So for Cartesian, the stretching factors hi are all 1 and unit vector derivatives are 0. So the two terms drop out of the three most general terms that we have, and therefore we have finally divergence of the isotropic part of the stress tensor minus pi identity tensor I double bar, and that this is equal to minus del p del xi ei cap in Cartesian, of course. And this del minus del p del xi ei cap is simply nothing but the gradient of pressure with a minus sign. So minus you can say del p or gradient of pressure. So this term for Cartesian simplifies like this, gets simplified in this form, and for cylindrical we have to look at the other the three terms together. So first term is minus grad p, as I have already pointed out. जो पहला टर्म है वो grad p ही है in any coordinate system, and the other two terms are for specifically for cylindrical. They can be expressed like this because you have only theta as the only coordinate whose change causes changes in the unit vectors er cap and e theta cap. So the first term is simply minus p del e theta cap del theta, of course 1 over r is the stretching factor for that coordinate direction, and the second term is minus p e theta cap dot del ej cap del theta with the stretching factor r, and of course multiplied by ej cap. Now here j is actually a repeating index, so that means it has to be summed, but you do recognize that in summing you only need to consider only r and theta directions, because these are the only two vectors which change with theta. And further, since the system is orthogonal, so for j is equal to theta, you will get a zero contribution, because del e theta cap del theta is actually minus er. So e theta dot er cap minus er cap would be 0. So therefore I only consider this for j is equal to r. Okay, the last term. तो अगर लास्ट टर्म को j is equal to r लेके ओपन आउट करते हैं तो you get finally these terms minus grad p plus p by r er cap minus p by r er cap. So p by r er cap minus p by r er cap, they sort of annihilate each other or cancel each other, and finally you are left with again minus grad p. So I can say that for Cartesian as well as cylindrical frames of reference, both of them we have this result, del dot minus p identity tensor, divergence of the isotropic part in case of incompressible flows. This is simply equal to minus grad p. So we can say that the pressure force per unit volume acting on a fluid particle, चाहे आप कार्टेशियन में काम करें चाहे सिलिंड्रिकल में काम करें, और लेटर ऑन हम ये बताएंगे कि इवन दूसरे ऑर्थोगोनल सिस्टम लाइक spherical, which we will actually not be using in this course, but that also exists. So maybe at some advanced level you will be using the advanced course in fluid mechanics, you may be using that, but I can say safely that even for Cartesian, cylindrical and even for spherical, this result applies. So this is the last stage of simplification of this del dot minus p identity tensor. So it means divergence of the isotropic part comes out as minus grad p, minus gradient of pressure. Now moving on to the other term involving the strain rate tensor. So I already have my formula sheet with me, which is dealing with algebra and calculus of tensor functions. So from there I can directly refer and use the result that divergence of any second rank tensor del dot t, which has been written in the tensor in that sheet, the formula sheet on algebra and calculus of tensor functions. So here in this case, that T is replaced by general tensor is replaced by the strain rate tensor. So del dot strain rate tensor S double bar is equal to these three terms. So again, for Cartesian, the last two terms drop off and you have only one term, which is del Sik upon del Xi. So it means del Xi of, or partial derivative of Sik with respect to Xi, and of course the unit vector Ek cap. Now notice again there are some repeating indices involved, that is I and K, and finally we use the Cartesian component relations for the strain rate tensor components Sik. So Sik is equal to half of del Vk del Xi plus del Vi del Xk. You can go back and look at my earlier lectures on strain rate tensor, where I have talked about these components in Cartesian as well as cylindrical. So time has come now to use all those things. So this is the value of Sik, and of course del partial derivative with respect to Xi, that is the operator which needs to be operated on this Sik, so it is written outside. And of course once this operator is operated on Sik, then the unit vector Ek cap is to be written. And so what we have here is, notice in the step below what is happening once we take the operator del Xi inside. So it first operates on the first term, half is taken outside, so del 2 Vk del Xi. Now why it's written del Xi and not as del Xi square? That's because actually summation over I is to be considered, because I being a repeating index, so that's why that is written as a repeating index term. So del 2 Vk del Xi and operated on del Vk del Xi. So basically it's like the operator del Xi being operated twice on Vk. Okay, so that's why it's written as del 2 Vk and del Xi. If I don't write del Xi, then I will not be viewed as a repeating index, and therefore we go wrong in expanding that term. So plus for the second term, you remember that in calculus we have been taught, particularly dealing with the partial differentiation, that the order of differentiation for let's say the independent variables, the order of differentiation is not important so long as the function is differentiated with respect to xi or xk. So therefore although del xk was the operator applied first to vi, but deliberately I have switched the order of the partial derivatives. I have taken del xi inside and retaining the del xk operator outside. Now why I do this? Because I recognize that del vi del xi, I being a repeating index in this expression, so if you were to open this out, it looks like del v1 del x1 plus del v2 del x2 plus del v3 del x3. Now this should ring a bell immediately. This is nothing but the volumetric strain rate, so del dot v written in green. Okay, so this term is 0 for our case that we are considering. We are considering a incompressible flow, so my continuity equation del dot v 0 should be used here. So that means we are left with a very simple looking expression for divergence of strain rate tensor in Cartesian coordinates, and this is half of del 2 Vk del xi and of course Ek. Now this eventually can be written using the del operator, and you can write it as half of the del square v, or del square v is simply read as Laplacian of the velocity vector v. Del square is the Laplacian operator. Okay, just as del is the gradient operator, so del square is known as the Laplacian operator. So for Cartesian, we have shown that divergence of the strain rate tensor is nothing but half of Laplacian of the velocity vector, half del square v vector. Now we will go to show that even if we consider cylindrical coordinate system, a similar result can be obtained with a little bit you can say more manipulation and mathematical effort. तो ये ज़रूर है कि कार्टेशियन में ये बहुत आसान था और 2 स्टेप्स में आ गया, बट यही रिजल्ट सिलिंड्रिकल में भी आएगा with more effort. So anyway, these are one-time efforts. We will not be expecting you to do them again and again. These are basic results in fluid mechanics. So you just need to do them once to understand and have faith in these mathematical sort of results that we are getting out of it. So del dot S, again I write it directly using the del dot divergence of the general tensor of second rank expression that I derived in lecture 6 part 2 for cylindrical coordinates. तो cylindrical coordinates में हमने ये result पहले भी देख चुके हैं हम lecture 6 part 2 में. So वो result directly मैंने use कर लिया just by replacing the general tensor T by the strain rate tensor. So this is the result. So as you know, the divergence of a tensor is always a vector, so the result is a vector in cylindrical coordinates having the radial, theta and the z components. Right. So we move on now with this, and using this using the strain rate tensor components in terms of velocity gradients in cylindrical coordinates. ये सब हम लेक्चर 7 में ऑलरेडी दे चुके हैं आपको कि cylindrical coordinates, in cylindrical coordinates what are the strain rate tensor components in terms of the velocity components. So if I use those relations for strain rate tensor components in cylindrical coordinates, we can express after some amount of manipulation. Though I've written a little manipulation, well, it's a little bit more than little manipulation. So I can show that del dot S will finally come out as this vector. So the first component is ER, the radial component is half of the Laplacian of VR minus half VR over R square minus 1 over R square del V theta del theta, plus look at this term, half of del over del R of the volumetric strain rate del dot V. Now naturally del dot V, the type of flow that we are considering, is 0. So therefore this term must drop off or must be striked off as 0. Similarly this term is in the second component E theta cap component. You notice that we have half of 1 over R del theta of this volumetric strain rate. So again it drops off, and in the last term I have half of del z of the volumetric strain rate. So again it drops off. So the divergence of strain rate tensor comes out as this expression, the vector expression on the right, with the volumetric strain rate terms being just dropped, and because they vanish as 0. So we have Laplacians of the various velocity components VR, V theta, Vz, and of course with a half factor outside, and you have some extra terms only in radial and theta components. The extra terms are also shown in this this expression on the right. So now I am skipping a lot of mathematics in between because I expect you to try and do it yourself. I have done it many times and I don't see any point in just boring you with lot of mathematics, which can be done at any at your leisure, you can always sit in your rooms, and whenever you feel like it, you can show that whatever I've written on the right for divergence of strain rate tensor, finally that can be just shown to be equal to half of the Laplacian of velocity again. So I've written in brackets that this can be verified by applying the Laplacian operator del square in cylindrical coordinates on vector v. So what you have to do, del square operator, जो कि हमने हमारी एक और शीट भी है जिसमें हमने फॉर्मूला शीट जो आइडेंटिटीज थ्योरम से रिलेटेड है, वहाँ पे हमने एक्चुअल जो ज़्यादा यूज़ की है, बिकॉज इट गिव्स यू डायरेक्टली वेरियस एक्सप्रेशंस required in fluid mechanics, various divergence and gradients and Laplacians required. So वो सब हमने cylindrical में और Cartesian में सब बता रखे हैं उसमें. So this can be verified by applying the Laplacian operator del square in cylindrical coordinates on vector v. तो ये जो राइट हैंड साइड पे जो हमने ऊपर एक्सप्रेशन दिया हुआ है ई आर ई थीटा ई जेड वेक्टर के फॉर्म में, ये आप प्रूव कर सकते हैं कि ये पूरा टर्म हाफ ऑफ लैप्लासियन ऑफ वेलोसिटी वेक्टर है सिलिंड्रिकल कोऑर्डिनेट्स में भी. सो यू हैव टू बी केयरफुल विद यूनिट वेक्टर्स. ऑफ कोर्स जब आप लैप्लासियन, when you apply the Laplacian operator to the velocity field, be careful with dealing with unit vectors e r cap, e theta cap. When I say be careful, I mean that whenever you have theta direction derivatives of these unit vectors, don't forget to account for them. Okay, so so the whole effort that we have been making is giving us some rewards, in the sense that again we find that del dot the strain rate tensor is simply equal to half of the Laplacian of velocity vector, or mathematically you can say half of del square v. So this result applies for both Cartesian and cylindrical. So we have a nice generality evolving. We got the same result for del dot s in Cartesian and cylindrical, and we also got the same result for divergence of the isotropic part of the stress tensor minus pi identity tensor, and that came out to be minus grad p or minus del p for both Cartesian and cylindrical. So now, therefore, on the right now I am reading this statement now. Therefore, finally, the linear momentum or G.2 equation can be expressed for incompressible homogeneous constant property flow of a Newtonian fluid as rho naught, then material derivative or material derivative of velocity, which is nothing but the particle acceleration, so is equal to rho naught times the body force intensity per unit mass. So the three types of forces are on the right, and the left side simply says mass into acceleration, of course on a unit volume basis. So that's why the mass term, which is written as rho naught times the volume of the particle, so the volume cancels from all sides. So eventually you get rho naught dv dt is equal to these three forces on the right. The body force first, then you have the pressure force acting on the fluid particle, and the last is the much awaited term that we wanted, that is the viscous force term, right? So we were much elusive term rather, because आपने entire second year course में fluid mechanics के इस टर्म को नहीं देखा कि viscous force acting on a fluid particle, how we can write it, how we can express the viscous force acting on the fluid particle. So here we have got a interesting result and expression that mu naught del square or Laplacian of velocity vector, this is the viscous force acting on fluid particle per unit volume, but this is not a general expression. Remember, this is the viscous force acting on fluid particle per unit volume in what type of flow? In incompressible, homogeneous, constant property flow. Okay, So it's not a general, totally general point blank statement, but of course it applies to a large category of flows which you can approximate as incompressible, homogeneous, and having constant properties. So like viscosity and all, so constant properties. So now the above equation holds for Cartesian as well as cylindrical coordinates. So this is important कि ये जो equation momentum equation है, ये जो आपने निकाला है, ये दोनों ही coordinate systems के लिए equally well काम करेगा. Okay, so right. Now finally we have the following set of equations in primitive variables जिनकी हम निकालना चाह रहे थे in primitive variables, that is velocity and pressure. जैसा कि आप देख सकते हैं कि मोमेंटम इक्वेशन में वी हैव ओनली वेलोसिटी एंड प्रेशर एज द फ्लो वेरिएबल्स. So that finally we have the following set of equations in primitive variables that govern the viscous, incompressible, homogeneous, constant property flow of a Newtonian fluid. Now what are these equations? The first equation is of course the continuity del dot V0, and the linear momentum equation, which is now an equation which already accounts for the constitutive relations. Remember, Navier-Stokes निकालने जब हम जा रहे थे तो हमने क्या करना है कि हमने जो स्ट्रेस वाला टर्म है मोमेंटम इक्वेशन में उसको यूजिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूटिव रिलेशंस उसको वापस प्रिमिटिव वेरिएबल्स के टर्म्स में लेके आना है, सो दैट हमें एट एनी गिवन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम इतने ज्यादा इक्वेशंस जैसे G.1 है, G.2 है, G.3, ये सब लेकर के चलने की जरूरत ना पड़े, है ना. लेट्स रिड्यूस अवर बैगेज, लेट्स नॉट कैरी सो मच बैगेज विद अस, ओके, ऑल द टाइम. सो द आइडिया इज टू absorb some of these equations into the momentum equation so that we carry with us only these set of equations, the continuity and the momentum only for incompressible, homogeneous and constant property flows. So as I've talked earlier also, I've mentioned specifically कि ये जो minus grad P है ये क्या चीज है, physically क्या represent कर रहा है. It's the pressure force per unit volume on the fluid particles or any particle on which these equations apply, and as I said, the much awaited viscous force expression for these type of flows, mu naught del square V or Laplacian of V. So this is the viscous force per unit volume acting on a fluid particle in incompressible, homogeneous, constant property flow. So these equations जो लास्ट में आप देख रहे हैं inside my box, the red box, these are the what we call as the Navier-Stokes equations. Probably because these two gentlemen, Navier or rather Navier as they say, so these are the Navier-Stokes equations and probably named in the honor of the gentlemen whose works have evolved in these equations. Okay, ये जो equations आए हैं ये इसका credit इन दो लोगों को जाता है. Right. So these equations form a complete model as far as number of variables and number of equations are concerned. So remember ये हमारे लिए बहुत prime importance की चीज़ है कि जब भी हम किसी भी fluid flow problem के लिए we are writing down the basic physical principles and equations that govern that flow. Whenever we write down the mathematical model, we must perform a check that the number of variables that are involved in those equations and the number of equations themselves, the two must match in as far as counting is concerned. Okay, तो जितने भी आपके पास equation आप लिखने जा रहे हैं किसी भी viscous fluid flow मॉडल के लिए, उसमें number of equations should match with the number of variables that occur in those equations. So let us now check rather what is the situation as far as the incompressible, homogeneous, constant property model Navier-Stokes equations are concerned. तो अगर Navier-Stokes equations को primitive variables में देखें तो उसमें चार अननोन, चार वेरिएबल्स हैं, वन प्रेशर एंड थ्री कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ वेलोसिटी वेक्टर. सो these are four variables. और equations भी आपके पास, there's one continuity which is a scalar equation, and there are three momentum equations because the momentum equation is a vector equation. So I have four equations. So yes, I do have a complete balance between the equations and the number of variables that are contained in those equations. Okay, right. So now notice that the linear momentum equation reduces to the well-known Euler's equation that you learnt in the earlier course on fluid mechanics if you neglect the viscous force. That means if suppose I say that I am dealing with a flow where I feel that the viscous effects are not very significant, so I drop the viscous force altogether from the linear momentum equation. Now the moment I do that from the Navier-Stokes equations, or rather the momentum equation, linear momentum equation in the Navier-Stokes equations, I get the celebrated Euler's equation if I neglect the viscous force. So there's a lot of consistency going on here as far as what we know in the past and what we are adding in terms of knowledge. So the viscous force is the new addition that we have achieved from our efforts so far. So now finally I would like to give you a brief summary of this lecture and also some of the knowledge that we learnt in my previous lecture number 10. So एक तरह से 10 और 11 का ये total summarization है. So what is the summary? The first important point that I am going to stress is that the procedure of applying basic laws to a fluid particle directly gives the governing equations for fluid motion. तो ये जो particle वाली जो approach है, जो मैं जिसको बार बार emphasize कर रहा हूँ, I am emphasizing a lot. The reason is that you can directly apply the basic physical principle because a particle is a physical system or entity, and very quickly you get the governing equations for fluid motion. So I am a strong proponent or advocate of this approach, and please my request to you all is that you should carefully you can say you should absorb this procedure of developing any basic law for a fluid, rather developing any equation out of a basic physical principle or law by applying it to a fluid particle. तो ये जो ट्रेनिंग है जो आपको सॉर्ट ऑफ इम्पार्ट करने की कोशिश की जा रही है, सो दिस ट्रेनिंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज even if you want to, let's say, apply first law of thermodynamics or anything to a single fluid particle, you just need some expressions, basic expressions like what is the amount of heat transfer to the particle, what is the amount of work done by external forces acting on the fluid particle. तो अगर आप वो सब डेवलप कर ले, जैसे कि हमने फोर्सेस ऑन अ पार्टिकल और ये सब पहले ही डेवलप कर लिया था, तो इसी तरह से ये एक्सप्रेशंस भी पहले ही डेवलप किए जा सकते हैं. तो फिर आप फर्स्ट लॉ ऑफ थर्मोडायनेमिक्स और ये सारी चीजें भी इजीली इसी तरीके से अप्लाई कर सकते हैं ऑन अ फ्लूइड पार्टिकल. So that is what the message is that I want to convey from this first point, that please make a note of the procedure of applying basic laws to a fluid particle. Okay, next is what is my second important summarization, that for any type of viscous fluid, so any type of viscous fluid need not be Newtonian, okay, वो non-Newtonian भी हो सकता है. For any type of viscous fluid, the basic governing equations, which what do we mean by basic governing equations? The basic governing equations are those equations which are obtained by applying physical laws or physical principles. तो इसमें मैं जो equation of states वगैरह की जो बात करता हूँ ऐड करने की, उसको मैं नहीं basic physical laws में नहीं काउंट करता हूँ. I am not counting them in basic physical laws. Okay, so that's why I am summarizing them quickly. The continuity, which is mass conservation, of course any type of viscous fluid है तो need not be the flow need not be incompressible. So general continuity, linear momentum, they are all written, and of course the constitutive equations are also written for a viscous fluid. Like viscous stress tensor is some function of strain rate tensor and time for time dependent fluids, and it is simply a function of strain rate tensor for time independent fluids. तो ये जो आइडिया है, सेकेंड पॉइंट जो है, ये आपको परमिट करेगा, दिस विल अलाउ यू to deal with any kind of viscous fluid, may be Newtonian, may not be Newtonian. So in the modern day context where there's a lot of interest in biological fluid mechanics or applications of fluid flows in biomedical engineering or sort of biological systems, you can say fluid flow systems, dealing with for example, you deal with blood flow in arteries and veins, you may be dealing with airflow inside the lungs, and so on and so forth. Mainly blood is more important because there's a lot of circulatory flows going on inside the human body, so with heart as a pump involved. So blood not always behaves as a Newtonian fluid, so that's why this idea is important. How do you tackle those flow situations in dealing, so it means that जो ये second point में convey किया जा रहा है, whatever is being conveyed in the second point would be very relevant for in the modern day context where fluid mechanics is now ready to tackle the problems encountered in biological systems and in engineering of such systems, biomedical engineering and so forth. So this is the second summarization, second important point that we have learnt in lecture 10 and 11. Now coming to the third important learning which needs to be summarized, that if my fluids are Newtonian, then I write my viscous tensor as general viscous tensor as lambda skk. Skk is simply the volumetric strain rate, and identity tensor plus 2 mu times the strain rate tensor. And also we should remember the Stokes hypothesis, because it involves the first coefficient of viscosity mu and second coefficient of viscosity lambda. So Stokes hypothesis lambda minus 2/3 mu needs to be remembered. So for non-Newtonian fluids, this is how we'll be, rather for Newtonian fluids, non-Newtonian to second part में general discussion हो गया. For Newtonian fluids, the viscous stress tensor is in general this, and whereas lambda is minus 2/3 mu. So I'm talking of any kind of flow, whether compressible or incompressible. तो अगर Newtonian fluids हैं तो ये viscous stress tensor और lambda की value can be used generally speaking. Now coming to the fourth one, important point that I want to make here, the basic physical laws, they are not the only equations that can be used to develop a complete mathematical model of a fluid flow. And we have already seen that many times these equations are much less in number than the number of variables involved. Okay, we had a discussion on that in my lecture number 10. So I want to remind you here, once these lectures are over on Navier-Stokes equations, that basic physical laws need to be supplemented with equation of states, like density is a function of pressure and temperature, viscosity is a function of temperature and pressure, and so on, thermal conductivity and other specific heats at constant volume and so on. So this is just a reminder that the basic physical laws may not be sufficient to develop a complete mathematical model of the fluid flow under consideration. Okay, so we need to remember this. Finally, in order to have as many equations, of course, as the number of flow variables contained in those equations. तो ये एक बहुत ही important बात है जो हमेशा ध्यान में रखनी है कि जब भी किसी flow के equations लिखे जाएं तो mentally at least you need to count the number of equations and the number of variables that occur or that are contained in those equations. वो जो equations आप लिख रहे हैं उसमें कितने वेरिएबल्स आए हैं वो अगर मैच नहीं करता है इक्वेशन से, सो दिस मॉडल दैट यू आर राइटिंग इज नॉट गोइंग टू गिव यू यूनिक सॉल्यूशंस. इट इज नॉट अ कंप्लीट mathematical model. So you need to look for extra equations. Okay, so now last point where I want to end my today's lecture, the Navier-Stokes equations for viscous incompressible homogeneous constant property flow for orthogonal coordinate systems. So what are the orthogonal coordinate systems generally employed in the subject of fluid mechanics? You use Cartesian, cylindrical and even spherical. Okay, spherical, as I said, they are outside the scope of my current course, but in some electives or some advanced courses in fluid mechanics you may have to be used these orthogonal systems also. तो उसका जो बेसिक वर्किंग है, नॉलेज जो है वो ऑलरेडी आपको इन द फॉर्म ऑफ जो आपको एल्जेब्रा एंड कैलकुलस के ऊपर जो लेक्चर डिलीवर किया है डीलिंग विद स्केलर, वेक्टर एंड टेंसर फंक्शंस, वो लेक्चर सफिशिएंट है टू टैकल एनी काइंड ऑफ कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम्स. ओके, तो लेटर ऑन कभी भी कोई नीड, इफ द नीड अराइजेस, यू कैन इजीली work with this new coordinate system, spherical coordinate system. As far as this course is concerned, we'll only be restricting ourselves to Cartesian and cylindrical orthogonal coordinate systems. तो Navier-Stokes equation जिनकी मैं बात कर रहा था viscous incompressible homogeneous constant property flow के लिए orthogonal coordinate systems में you can see finally this is the last point that I want to summarize, del dot v0 and rho naught. Now deliberately I have written this material derivative dv dt by writing it in terms of the local acceleration term del v del t plus the convective term v dot del v, because eventually the material derivative needs to be expressed in terms of the time and space partial derivatives, and so you need to break it up like this and equal to the three types of forces: the body force and the pressure force minus grad p and the viscous force, all being expressed as per unit volume acting on any fluid particle. So thank you very much, and with this end of this lecture we have come to a stage where we have formed a strong platform of basic platform which has eventually yielded what we were looking for, the governing equations, how to write the governing equations for any kind of a viscous fluid motion, and in particular we have narrowed it down to the incompressible homogeneous constant property flow, and we have finally established the Navier-Stokes equations for this type of flow. So इसके बाद जो कोर्स का जो एम है वो मोस्टली we will start teaching you or imparting you with knowledge of how to use these equations in predicting some flows, which means that we will be trying to discuss the mathematical aspects of these equations, because these are all equations you need to solve for specific flow problems. So जो application aspect है वो begin होगा इसके बाद से हमारा आगे के lectures में. We will be taking steps towards understanding these equations from mathematical point of view, what it will take to solve them, what type of equations these are, how we will be solving them, and the requirement of initial and boundary conditions for these equations. What do we understand by these initial and boundary conditions? So all this will come from lecture 12 onwards. Okay, thank you very much.